Good morning. This month we are talking about wisdom walks. We are reading the book by the same title by Sage Bennet, a minister of Centers for Spiritual Living. And she's helping us look at the different faith traditions of the world and borrowing pieces, parts of practices that we can enhance our own spiritual practice. We started with Islam and talked about the idea of submitting to prayer 5 times a day, no matter what faith tradition you are. And many people have written to me and told me that they experimented with that and what a deep practice it is to do prayer 5 times a day in a scheduled way. We talked about going with the flow. Actually, it was Dr. Kim Kaiser's message about Taoism. And then we talked about the Christian teaching through the words of Jesus of Nazareth about forgiveness. And then we heard from Rabbi George Gittleman and talked about the inner preparation that we can all do, whether we're Jewish or not, to prepare for a new beginning, because it's getting close on the Jewish practice of a new year. And that brings us to today, and we're wrapping it up today with Let Nature Be Your Guide, from the Native American wisdom traditions. We began actually on Wednesday evening, and we do that on Wednesday evenings. We talk about the book of the month and explore it a little bit. We began talking about this idea of Native American spirituality. And I think the most important thing I've learned so far is that Native American spirituality or wisdom isn't something that can be separated out from life. It's one and the same thing. In a way of thinking, there isn't such a thing as Native American religion. In many of the Native American religions, there isn't a special word set aside for religion. And there's some 250 distinct Native American religions and cultures, each with their own ceremonies and creation stories and practices. And you can't really just lump them all together and say, and now this is Native American religion. That's not how it works. Nevertheless, I'm reading a lot from Native American teachers and discovering that there are certain themes that are louder than the others throughout Native American traditions. For example, that everything is imbued with spirit. For example, that there is this constant dialogue, this conversation, a constant conversation or a relationship that is going on between all things of creation and all things of creation. And that humans, well, they're part of this ongoing complex relationship, this web, not set aside from it, observing it from the outside, and certainly not set higher or lower, just part of it, simply part of it. I can't help but think of my upcoming trip to Bali. I'm leaving tonight. I know, I'm so excited. and again, going on January, you're welcome to come with me. I love taking people there because ordinary life and sacred life in Bali is integrated. You can't tell the difference between the two. Wherever you go in Bali, you see daily visible evidence of spiritual culture. From the way businesses are opened, to the way rites of passages are celebrated, to the way houses are decorated. It's not like religion or spirituality is an add-on, like it is in the West. You know, over here, it's kind of like a luxury item. You know, in fact, we even taught, don't bring up religion in polite conversation, right? Because it could cause trouble. It's deeply personal, it's private. In fact, people who are spiritual are characterized often as being a little woo-woo. A little strange. Not so in Bali, and now I'm learning also probably not so in Native American culture. It's not separated. It's all one. So in a way, health and wellness and success and happiness are all tied up together with this idea of being in step with the great spirit of nature. being in harmony with what is. Indeed, in Bali, and maybe it's true of Native American cultures too, there's the sense of feeling sorry for people who do not live a spiritual life. It's almost as if, how else would you live? How can you rip the two apart? I'm learning that in some Native American cultures, ceremony is barely recognized as being different from living life. So there are ceremonial rituals associated with everything, with the birth of new life, with rites of passages, with sowing of new crops, with reaping them. You can't do one without the other. It's not like you do ceremony to add holiness to something. The holiness is already there, and then the ceremony is the part of the experience of the holiness. I'm new to America. I'm a naturalized citizen, and so I've had to learn about Native American culture by studying contemporary Native American teachers, like, for example, the author Michael Garrett, who is a traditional Eastern Cherokee, and also a counselor and an educator. And I love reading his work because he creates this bridge between the ancient culture and contemporary thinking, with a mind to include people like me who don't know anything, so that we can start to learn about it. He's got a beautiful book. He's written many books, and one of them is Walking on the Wind. And sadly, one of the things I've learned about Native American culture is that it has suffered immeasurable loss of continuity between the present culture and the pre-Columbian America, with so much cultural devastation as a result of forced conversion to Christianity and Western cultural standards, and disease and war, so that the chain of traditional handing down of wisdom through elders to the people has been interrupted. And many Native American cultures are finding themselves not having access to that and having to recreate it now and having to reestablish themselves. But the good news is that I'm learning that Native American spirituality is alive and modern and vibrant. I also learned that the immense diversity among the Native American people makes it just impossible to oversimplify it. You know, like the way we like to do it here. You know, just give me a bullet list. Make a generalization so that I can just describe this complex subject in a few words, then I'll understand it and put it in my journal, check it off. To summarize Native American spirituality is to fall short of describing it at all. Well, how do you summarize life? How do you summarize God? And there's no central figure as a founding figure who set the teaching in place for us to refer to. And not only that, when Europeans first arrived here, the diversity of the first people was even richer than it is today. Some people saying with over 1,000 distinct groups of people, each with their own rituals, each with their own festivals and creation stories and codes of life. As I read about it, there's some certain ideas that pop up, and they may be common to many of the groups, but they're certainly of interest to me. For example, this. There generally is no concept of original sin. Whoa. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine if there was a cosmic vacuum cleaner and it passed over America and sucked up out of our consciousness the concept of original sin so that we just didn't have it? Because, you know, many of us are introduced to it when we're infants. So we internalize it. I mean, can you imagine living your life not understanding that there can be anything wrong with you? How your life might be? Or how about this one? There is no concept of rewards or punishment after death. There's no concept of hell, heaven, or any kind of waiting period between the two. Can you imagine if that was just removed? Oh my. See, rather, generally among Native American cultures, earth and life is considered to be simply a natural experience. A natural experience, our true home. Can you imagine the idea that you belong here? What a concept. You're supposed to be here. A true spiritual dwelling place, this. Right now, not later. So there's this focus on maintaining harmony with what is, with the world, rather than preparing for a beneficial experience later. Trying to establish gain later. That's amazing. As I read about Native American culture, I'm acutely aware that I was born and raised in South Africa. And so I know the vast damage that can be done to an indigenous people and its culture through minimizing it. See, I was taught in school in South Africa, I was taught that anything not Christian was to be considered invalid. Perhaps cute and interesting, but certainly not to be taken seriously. That's what I was taught. And you know, when you're taught something as a child, you integrate it. So you have to consciously and ongoingly unlearn it. You have to confront it all the time. And I see how Native American spirituality, to some degree, has suffered the similar view in modern America and in early America. You know, on one hand, it's been minimized and popularized and oversimplified in the Hollywood culture. Disrespected. And on the other hand, there's also been a genuine and sincere interest in learning about it and integrating it and imitating it. And, you know, some say that imitation is the highest form of flattery. And sometimes it can just go really wrong. Have you ever seen imitation go really wrong? A story I love to tell, and I've told it right from the stage before, is the story of a friend of mine who visited Japan in the holiday Christmas shopping time. And she went to a department store. And the department store, in the attempt to welcome Western visitors and make them feel at home and shop more, brought some of the cultural ideas of the West into the department store to help them feel welcome. And so they had a Christmas tree in the entrance, and on the top of the Christmas tree was Santa on a crucifix. I mean, no malice intended, you know what I mean? It's just awkward, you know, it's like you can't even look at it, right? It's just wrong. And I think that's sometimes what we do with other cultures. In our sincere attempt to take it on, we just get it wrong. Which is why I'm really enjoying reading Michael Garrett, an actual Native American, so he can steer me on the right course. Because he helps me understand, one who knows absolutely nothing, he helps me understand a little bit more about his culture's worldview and help me integrate little parts of it while staying culturally appropriate. You know, he talks about how important it is for everyone, no matter whether you're Native American or not, how important it is to pay attention to this dialogue, this relationship that is going on between everything and everything all of the time. And he encourages us to reinforce our connection to this complex web of life. And not only for our own benefits, but for the benefit of all our relationships within this web itself, which he calls the true World Wide Web. He says that modern dependency on technology may be responsible for our depending less and less on this inner technology, this technology that would allow us to access the ongoing dialogue between the things of creation and the spirit that gives rise to it. This World Wide Web where everything is that we will ever need to live and to grow and to connect and to prosper. And it is constantly broadcasting. He says that in our search for newer and better technology, it is possible that we have forgotten how to depend on our own internal technology. He asks this beautiful question. Could it be that we have allowed our sacred stream of consciousness to become muddied with the facts and figures and the need for life to be quick and easy? In creating technology to simplify our lives, might we have also further complicated them? In today's world of information and speed, it is important not to forget why we are here. And life has a way of reminding us when we listen. When we listen, if we listen, if we can even listen, and listen in a special way. The way of listening that in our own science of mind tradition we would call courting the presence. And that courting the presence, that listening to the web of life, has a certain feeling that goes with it. It is a feeling of mindfulness, being available, not rushing, humility, being teachable, listening. He describes it as the feeling of making a connection to that which is already trying to happen. See, what does that mean? That which is already trying to happen. It's a feeling of connection to that which was already in the room, that was already there, wherever there is. Maybe it's the feeling that you get when you think of someone and suddenly the phone rings and they're on the other side. Or maybe it's that feeling of someone pops into your consciousness and you bump into them in the supermarket. Or maybe it's that feeling of you go somewhere, you've never been there, but you feel tremendously like you've been there before. Or maybe it's that feeling of that first time when you listen instead of interpret. He's inviting us to pay attention to those moments and even practice noticing them so that we can learn from them. Imagine that, to practice listening to the wisdom of creation. In our own Science of Mind textbook, there's this prayer at the end. We don't like to read it too much because it says this. One of the lines is, and let me not pursue the paths of my own counsel. We don't like that. That's what this is about. Instead of me bringing my own counsel to creation, let me come to creation for its counsel. And he suggests that a good place to start is by placing your fingers on your pulse and paying attention to your pulse only, the way it feels against your wrist, the temperature, the rhythm. Is it moving fast or slow? Is it strong? Because he says, once you learn to pay attention to your heart literally, then it becomes easier to pay attention to your heart figuratively. Because the language of the heart isn't literal. It's figurative. But we go first to the literal place and make ourselves open to the figurative information. And he talks about how easy it is for our brains to get in the way of this connection with its busyness and the noise. So you got to seek out a place that can enhance your ability to get into it. You got to create a space, an opportunity. If you can't get to nature, you got to create the space in your home. Here's what our book of the month, Wisdom Walk, says about it. It says, spend some time alone in nature. Choose a time, a morning or an afternoon or a whole day, a weekend, where you will have some uninterrupted time alone in nature. You can do that in a garden also. You can also do it in a room where you can see nature through a window. Take as little as possible to this place so that you will not be distracted from placing your attention on the natural environment around you. Go to the places in nature that you love, a wooded area, mountains, seashore, the high desert, and allow yourself to be receptive to the natural world. Well, yesterday I went on a bike ride, a long bike ride. I went from Santa Rosa on Cherry Ridge Road to Occidental and then up Coleman Valley Road, all the way to the ocean and then back, And yeah, it was awesome. And there was this point on the top of Coleman Valley Road, we shouldn't tell anybody about that place. You know what I mean? It's too precious. And where there was this immense silence that descended with a panoramic view. Such silence. And I knew I was going to be talking about this, let nature be your guide. So I said to my cycling partner, what do you think nature is trying to say to us, to you? And at first we both jumped in with our quick answers, what we've heard before, with our own counsel. And we caught ourselves and said, no, let's really listen. So we stopped. Let's listen to the wind. Let's listen to the heat of the sun. Let's listen. And it's so interesting, then physically you listen to the noise, and that's beautiful, but then you listen to the metaphor of the message. And such wisdom comes out. And it doesn't need to make immediate sense. It's very moving. Like, things were coming through us like nature is saying everything continues even beyond this planet. And then when the wind was blowing so hard, my friend said, and it's like it's saying, walk strong. And we were just sitting in that. It was so amazing. And all of a sudden, there was this moment when a whole row of cars and motorbikes came over, like 24, just roaring back behind each other. And the roar of the motors and the cars, there was literally so much noise pollution that it was actually drowning out creation. It put an end to creation. I thought to myself, no wonder we cannot hear the World Wide Web. We've suppressed it to the point where all that we can hear is the noise of industry and technology and progress. Oh. And then when we came back and we had to go through town and town and town and concrete and the connection and the thread to the wisdom of the Great Spirit became less and less easy to stay connected to with the constant noise. I love what I'm learning about Native American wisdom. It's reminding me that no matter what faith tradition I am, I can still quit rushing. I can still quit jumping to solutions. I can still quit hastening to give my explanation. And I can seek out time away from the noise and the pollution of noise, mind noise, and the pollution of urgency, and the pollution of uninvestigated thinking, to sit and reconnect with the world wide web of being through nature or through stillness. Oh, to not rush. Michael Garrett says, in the Cherokee way, when confronted with a difficult decision or a sense of uncertainty, it is important for the person to sit with it for at least 4 days before taking any action. So, letting nature be your guide requires spaciousness and patience and a slow noticing. I've got to be teachable. I've got to leave my opinion in the city with the noise and come to nature, and by that I mean the Great Spirit, or as our tradition would say, the thing itself, the mind of creation. Come to it available. So I leave you with this invitation to find your way to nature, or to a garden, or to a park, or to a room through which you can look. You can look through a window at nature, and to spend some time asking yourself the question: what is nature, the thing itself, trying to tell me? And then to give yourself sufficient time to let your own answers, your own preconceived answers, subside a little bit. Let them settle down, to see what metaphor can rise in its place. Now, I brought along for us to read together a contemporary Native American style prayer that has been very popular these days, and I invite you to read it with me. Great Spirit, give us hearts to understand, never to take from creation's beauty more than we give, never to destroy wantonly for the furtherance of greed, never to deny to give our hands for the building of earth's beauty, never to take from her what we cannot use. Give us hearts to understand that to destroy earth's music is to create confusion, that to wreck her appearance is to blind us to beauty, that as we care for her, she will care for us. We have forgotten who we are. We have sought only our own security. We have exploited simply for our own ends. We have distorted our knowledge. We have abused our power. Great Spirit, whose dry lands thirst, help us to find the way to refresh your lands. Great Spirit, whose waters are choked with debris and pollution, help us find the way to cleanse your waters. Great Spirit, whose beautiful earth grows ugly with misuse, help us to find the way to restore beauty to your handiwork. Great Spirit, whose creatures are being destroyed, help us to find a way to replenish them. Great Spirit, whose gifts to us are being lost in selfishness and corruption, help us to restore our humanity. And I invite you to take a breath in with me. And as you exhale, let us each one take a moment to acknowledge that Great Spirit, the giver of all life, the mind of creation that is everywhere present, in whom we live and breathe and have our being. Let us recognize that we are connected through it to each other and to all of creation, across all time and space. And let us recognize the power of our choices and our ability to create and recreate. And with humility to take that power and to use it for the creation of harmony, goodness, compassion, love, and sharing. Let us consult with that one Spirit within, so that we may take our place in the community of beings, not as supreme overlords, but as part of the eternal web of all being. In deepest gratitude for this, and for the spiritual law that responds to our prayer, I say thank you, and I let it be. And so it is.